I want to look at all of the numbers along the entire launch journey, not just that final number of how many people signed up or what that overall launch conversion rate is. And then at each step, I ask, okay, what could we do to improve this? What worked? What were the strong points? And then what were the weak points that we can improve upon? Because it's no good to just say, well, I need to make my launch convert better. Because your launch has so many different parts to it. There's so many moving pieces, and each of these moving pieces can influence that overall conversion rate. Welcome back to Imperfect Action. This is episode 728. Today, I'm doing a mini debrief of my most recent course launch, what worked, what didn't work, and what I learned from it. Because I think sometimes you can really benefit from listening to somebody else break down the behind the scenes of their business and their launches. And I know that there's a lot more to a launch than just how many people signed up at the end. Like if you've only ever learned one thing from me about launching, let it be that there is so much more into what goes on and what's working, what's not working than just that end result, the dollar figure or how many people signed up. So what did I launch? What are we reviewing? So I recently launched my 4-week crash course to fill your audience with people who can't wait to buy from you, called Boost Your Brand's Superfans. And this course is always open. So this was a particularly interesting launch because I had previously live launched it back in 2022, but I hadn't had time to launch it since. So this time I ran a live launch. Because doors are always open, it wasn't a doors open, doors closed kind of live launch, but there were bonuses and a live Q&A calls, 4 of them, that if you wanted to attend all 4 calls, you had to sign up by a particular date. Now, those calls aren't usually part of the program, so that was like a nice juicy bonus for somebody to sign up. Now, if you missed Boost Your Brand Superfans and you're like, oh, that sounds kind of like what I want. Like I want to grow my audience and I don't want to have to twerk on TikTok and run loads of Facebook ads to do that. You can still sign up. There is one last Q&A call left to go next week if you're listening to this episode as it goes live. So if you sign up for it now, you will still be able to attend that Q&A call next week. You can find all of the details for this at stephtaylor.co/BYBS. Or you can send me a DM on Instagram. I'm there at stephtaylor.co. Send me BYBS and I will send you the link to get all of the details for that program. Okay, so when I'm reviewing a launch, I want to look at a couple of key points. And I do this with my own launches, but I also do this with my strategy intensive clients who have launched previously and they're coming to work with me for a launch strategy on their second launch or 10th launch even. Right, so I look at a couple of different things. First of all, I want to look at all of the numbers in a spreadsheet. So everything from how many people viewed the webinar registration page, how many people signed up for the webinar registration, how many people attended live, how many people converted live. I want to look at all of the numbers along the entire launch journey, not just that final number of how many people signed up or what that overall launch conversion rate is. And then at each step, I ask, okay, what could we do to improve this? What worked? What were the strong points? And then what were the weak points that we can improve upon? Because it's no good to just say, well, I need to make my launch convert better. Because your launch has so many different parts to it. There's so many moving pieces, and each of these moving pieces can influence that overall conversion rate. So instead, we need to narrow down which part specifically do we need to improve upon. And once we know where to improve, then we can improve it. But we first need to know where. So I always send a non-buyer survey to everyone who clicked through to view the sales page. So clicked on an email to view the sales page, but didn't end up buying. I send them a non-buyer survey to find out what stopped them from buying. And some interesting things that came up in this one that we just sent out. One big common thread that came up was, I'm doing too many other courses at the moment. This came up multiple times, and it shows me that I need to be really clear on how, my courses, anyone who's done my courses will tell you they are action. They're not long training videos where you have to sit for 40 minutes at a time to learn something. It's like 5 to 10 minutes and then go and implement this. That's how I teach. So I know I need to potentially demonstrate that a little bit more in future launches. I need to show them how it's not about learning, but it's more about guiding your actions so that you are getting those great results. And potentially even including extra bonuses that would help somebody to make implementation easier or save them time in the process of implementing what they are learning. Another one that came up was interesting. So a couple of people actually said something along the lines of, well, you're anti-social media or you're not a big fan of social media. And yes, like I'm not a huge fan of social media, but what I teach in Boost Your Brand Superfans can apply to any platform. So the reason why I say, well, you don't have to be on social media is because I genuinely believe you don't have to. But if you want to, or if your audience is there, then you can still apply the structure and the frameworks that I teach in the course to whichever social media platform you are on. And those couple of sentences that I had from those people shows me that maybe my messaging wasn't clear enough on, hey, this can actually be used regardless of what platform. It's not platform specific. The next one that came up was, I didn't know what to expect. This came up a few times, and that shows me that maybe I need to be a little clearer in my sales copy about what's actually involved. I maybe needed to add some more detail to each module and lesson outline. Another one that came up a few times, and this comes up with pretty much every offer that I launch, is I need to figure it out on my own first. And this always reminds me, I can be clearer in joining the dots on, how this course is going to save them time figuring it out, how this course is going to help them grow their audience faster so that they can grow their sales faster. Joining the dots between what I'm selling them and how it's going to benefit them by using my course rather than trying to figure it out on their own, do it themselves. One that always comes up is budget. I didn't have enough money. I couldn't afford it right now. I've spent too much on other courses this year. That's fine. That just tells me that I probably didn't show them why they need to prioritize it right now. And maybe I could have done a better job of connecting the dots between this course and how it's going to lead to sales in their business, right? Because if what you've done to this point doesn't generate those sales, then maybe you need to try something different. And that's somewhere where I could be a lot clearer in connecting the dots. You've got to try something different to have a different result. Okay, so those are some of the core messages that came out of that non-buyer survey. And you can see from that how I've realized this is some of the things I need to improve in my messaging next launch so that my audience can understand this is a good fit. Or if it's actually not a good fit for them, then they can quickly see, this isn't a good fit for me. Messaging is so, so, so important when it comes to your launch. So even if you had a terrible launch, nobody signed up and you are like, I don't want to ever look at this thing ever again. Nobody wants it. Still send that non-buyer survey because it might not be that nobody wants it. It might just be that they didn't understand what you were selling or that they weren't quite sure if it was going to be the right fit for them. That is where we learn from that non-buyer survey. And we always send ours out about 7 days after doors close while it's still fresh in their mind. Okay, so what worked in this launch? Now, this launch in general, I'm pretty happy with it because, after having had this course available for buying for 12 months, it was on the website for about more than 12 months. And we haven't really talked about it. I haven't had time to launch it and tell anyone about it. So it's just been sitting there on my website and hardly anyone had bought it in between launches. So it was quite nice to see actually people do want this. I just need to tell them about it. I just need to launch this a little bit more often. So that I'm really happy with that. The webinar worked beautifully in this launch. So we had over a 30% live show up rate, which, 30% is what I consider a really good live show up. So 30% of the people who registered attended live. And at the moment, I've noticed even in my paid programs, live show ups have been down quite a lot because everyone just has so much in their calendars. So to be able to get such a great live show up for a free masterclass, I know we did something right there. And then of those people who showed up, more than 10% converted live in that webinar room. More than 10% of the people who showed up purchased the course while I was teaching that masterclass. This all tells me the topic I taught was great, the sales pitch was good, and my fast action bonus was compelling enough that they decided, hey, yeah, I want to take action right now so I can get this extra bonus that I can't get if I sign up later. Another thing that worked quite well was not showing up on Instagram during the launch. So I came into this launch pretty exhausted from a few massive months, and social media just exhausts me so much. Like, I just didn't have the energy to really show up on Instagram in this launch. Didn't even have the energy to like brief my team on what content to create for me. So we really just shared masterclass promo and then relied on cart open emails to the email list to sell this course. And it worked. So yeah, maybe we could have converted a few extra people if I'd been active on Instagram, but you know what? I think it was worth it to not have to put that extra amount of energy into it. And then the other thing that worked really well was all of the launch content that we shared outside of Instagram. So in the lead up, you might have noticed on this show, I was sharing a lot of content around organic audience growth. And that content is very strategically designed to bridge what I call the magician's gap, which is a concept I teach inside Launch Magic. The magician's gap is this gap between where somebody is now and where they need to be ready to buy your offer. And my launch content, I know that I did a really great job with this. The messaging was really cohesive. I had a lot of comments from the audience and people who signed up for my course who were like, oh yeah, your free content, that really shifted my perspective on growing my audience. That for me is a sign that, yeah, that worked. I did a good job with that. What didn't work? Okay, what didn't work? So I know we can learn a lot from the things that worked, but sometimes the more painful aspect of the launch is to look at what didn't work. What can we improve next time? And the second half of Cart Open just didn't convert as well as the first few days. So Cart Open was 7 days long, and most of our sales came in the first 2 or 3 days. Now, this could be for a couple of reasons. It could be that my most engaged people, my own superfans, they didn't need a whole lot of selling to be ready to buy because they've been in my other programs or they've been listening to this podcast for a long time. They were already engaged. They were like, yep, I'm going to buy. So they didn't need a lot of extra help to make that decision. But it could also be that maybe there were some additional objections that my audience had that kept them on the fence and stopped them from signing up. And that is where that non-biased survey, the feedback that I got in there, I can go through and I can look at, what are some of the specific objections that maybe we didn't address in those cart open emails that would have stopped somebody from signing up? The objections like, well, you're not into social media. My audience is on social media and you don't like it. Those kinds of objections would have stopped somebody from buying the course. Another thing that didn't work was my energy was pretty low coming into this launch. I didn't have the energy to get scrappy like I usually would. I didn't have the energy to DM all of the people who were interested and on the fence or add in extra cart open emails if I noticed new questions and objections coming up or do Instagram stories. All of these things, they might have led to more sales in the launch, but I'm also really big on protecting my energy because it's very easy to give your launch 200% and then you burn out because you can't keep going at 200% for a long period of time. My own stress levels in the lead up to this launch were a lot higher than usual just because travel, backlog of all of the things that needed to be done, life, just all of that. And it meant that I left a lot of the launch to the last minute. A lot of the things that I was supposed to be doing, I was the bottleneck, which stopped my team from being able to do their job as effectively as they could. So that just compounded my stress. My energy levels dropped as a result of that. So I could absolutely have come into that launch a lot more prepared. And usually I do, but just this time I couldn't. And now I know maybe I need to allow a little bit more space in my calendar in the lead up to launches so that I am coming up with that full energy. What did I learn from this launch? So something that I learned it wasn't actually a new lesson, but it was a nice reminder. And, this came from because about 50% of the people who signed up had already bought another offer of mine before. They might have bought Offer Less, Sell More. Some of them had done Launch Magic. And this was a great reminder that, well, firstly, people don't know about your offers until you tell them about them. This offer had been available for over a year, and my most engaged students who had bought all of my other offers hadn't bought this one because they didn't know about it. And then the other thing to keep in mind is it's always easier to keep helping existing clients than it is to always try and get new ones, right? This offer is different to all of the other things that I sell, but it's still a pain point that I know my audience has, and that they can, when they solve this pain point, it's going to help them to get better results from my other offers as well. So there you go, little debrief of what worked, what didn't work, and what I learned from this most recent launch. Now, if you do want to join Boost Your Brand Superfans and get in before that one last live Q&A call that's happening next week, if you're listening to this episode when it goes live, you can head on over to stephtaylor.co/BYBS and you'll grab the link for that and get all the information where you can join. And you can grow your audience without running paid ads and twerking on TikTok and doing all of the things that you don't want to do. Now, if you've learned anything from this show or any of my episodes so far, please take 30 seconds to leave a quick rating and a review. It's honestly, I read every single one of them. It means a lot to me because I spend a lot of time outlining, recording. My team spends a lot of time editing. And it just, it reminds us that there are real listeners out there who are consuming this content. So please do take the time to do that. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you next time.